It started like any other quiet Saturday morning in Cedar Pine Estates, the kind of neighborhood where lawns were measured with rulers, mailboxes had to match by HOA code, and neighbors were more likely to report you than greet you. My wife Alina and I had just moved in 3 weeks earlier, fresh from the city, looking for peace and a bit of space to breathe. We didn't know then that the most dangerous thing in the entire neighborhood wasn't crime, wild animals, or natural disasters. It was Karen Wilburn, the president of the Homeowners Association. Now, I've seen petty people before, but Karen operated on an entirely different frequency. She was the kind of person who seemed to wake up angry, armed with a clipboard, a Bluetooth headset, and a pocket full of printed violation slips. If your grass was more than half an inch taller than regulation, she fined you. If your trash bins were out even 10 minutes after pickup time, you'd receive a citation with a passive-aggressive note about maintaining community standards. She had memorized the community bylaws like scripture and recited them like a preacher on Judgment Day. Rumor had it she once made a family repaint their front door because the shade of blue was emotionally disruptive. Another neighbor told me in whispers that Karen had chased a high school kid 2 blocks down the street just for putting his skateboard down on the sidewalk. Still, Alina, ever the optimist, tried to make peace. "Maybe she just needs kindness," she said one day, baking a tray of chocolate chip cookies. She walked over, introduced herself warmly, and offered them. Karen accepted them with a stiff smile, inspected them like a customs agent inspecting contraband, and said, "These had better not have nuts." I didn't authorize a food exchange. That was the beginning and end of that. We kept our heads down for the next few weeks, making minor improvements to our porch, repainting the fence, and trying not to trigger any infractions. We followed the rules. We read the community handbook, 87 pages of dense, soul-crushing restrictions, and tried to comply with every unreasonable regulation. But it didn't matter. Karen treated us like new blood threatening the purity of her perfect kingdom. She drove by slowly, her electric golf cart humming like a predator stalking its prey, snapping photos of our flower beds and mailbox. Each day felt like we were living under surveillance. Then came the wind chime. It was simple, metal and wood, soft-toned, nothing garish or loud. We found it at a local artisan fair, and Alina fell in love with it. She said it reminded her of the countryside where she grew up. So we hung it on a modest hook near the edge of our front porch. That night, as a cool breeze rustled the trees, the wind chime whispered gently. It was peaceful, almost meditative. For the first time since we moved in, we felt like the house was truly becoming home. The next morning, the peace was shattered. We were finishing breakfast when we heard heavy footsteps on the porch. The doorbell rang, twice, urgently. I opened the door to find Karen standing there, arms crossed, clipboard in hand, a citation already filled out. Her expression was somewhere between righteous fury and smug satisfaction. "This," she said, pointing a long finger at the chime, "is an unauthorized decorative sound device. HOA Regulation 14.7c. It clearly states that wind chimes, bells, gongs, or any auditory ornamentation must be pre-approved by the board." I blinked. It's a wind chime. Karen's lips curled. Exactly. Unapproved. Noise pollution. Aesthetically non-compliant. Alina came to the door behind me, calm as ever. "Karen," she said gently, "it's barely audible unless there's a breeze. It's handmade, not mass-produced." I thought that kind of charm would be welcome. Karen's eyes narrowed. "Charm is not a substitute for order." Alina chuckled politely. "It's really not bothering anyone." Karen stepped forward, uncomfortably close. "You've already received one informal warning about your solar garden lights being improperly spaced. I'm filing this as a formal violation. If it's not removed within 24 hours, you'll be fined $125 and be subject to board review." At that point, I stepped in. "Look, we're not trying to cause problems. But this is ridiculous." That's when it happened, the moment everything changed. Karen turned toward Alina, who was now standing on the top porch step, the wind chime gently swaying beside her. In one sudden motion, almost imperceptible, but clearly deliberate, Karen lifted her arm as if to snatch the chime. Instead, her elbow bumped into Alina's shoulder. The movement wasn't aggressive enough to scream, attack, but it was enough to destabilize her footing. Alina lost her balance. She tumbled down the 3 stone steps, landing hard on her side with a cry of pain. The world seemed to freeze. For half a second, even Karen looked shocked. I rushed past her, dropping to my knees beside Alina. "Are you okay, Alina?" She winced. "My arm, I think I hit my elbow." Blood was seeping from a scrape, and her eyes were glassy from shock. I turned back to Karen. "You shoved her." Karen straightened her posture, already recovering her condescending poise. "She tripped," she said coldly. "It was unfortunate, but certainly not my fault. If anything, that wind chime is the hazard." I was trembling with rage, dialing my phone. My fingers hovered over 911, but instead of completing the call, I hesitated. A deeper instinct took over, one I hadn't used in years. Instead of the emergency line, I opened an app disguised as a calculator and entered a 7-digit passcode. The screen changed. Emergency Protocol 7A activated. Civilian asset injury confirmed. Tactical assistance deploying. ETA, 3 minutes. I stared at Karen, my voice cold now. "You have no idea what you've just done." She scoffed, turning to leave. "I suggest you remove the wind chime and take better care of your property." I held Alina close as she groaned in pain, eyes fluttering shut from the shock. 3 minutes. That's all it would take before this quiet little neighborhood would remember that some rules don't just apply to property lines and lawn height, they apply to justice, too. It all happened in an instant, one of those moments that starts out annoyingly mundane and ends with everything unraveling faster than you can react. Alina was standing on the top step of our porch, gently cradling the wind chime, her calm demeanor a contrast to the wildfire rage building in Karen's voice. Karen, red-faced and vibrating with authority, was ranting about property value pollution, and how hippie noisemakers didn't belong in her neighborhood. Her words were shrill, layered with the kind of full legality only someone obsessed with what power could conjure. Then it happened, quick and deliberate. Karen lunged forward under the pretense of grabbing the chime but instead used her arm to give Alina a sharp shove. It wasn't hard enough to look violent on a security camera, but it was enough to send Alina reeling backward. Her heel slipped off the edge of the top step, and gravity took the rest. She fell, arms flailing, the wind chime still clutched in one hand, and landed hard on the flagstone below with a sharp cry. I burst through the front door just as she hit the ground, my stomach flipping as I saw the blood streaking down her arm and the stunned look in her eyes. "You just assaulted her," I roared at Karen, my voice louder than I'd ever heard it. But Karen, unmoved and clearly emboldened, folded her arms smugly and said, "She tripped. And your chime is still a violation under Section 14.7c. I could barely process her words through the pounding in my head. I knelt beside Alina, who was now sitting up slowly, wincing as she clutched her elbow. Her voice trembled. I think it's dislocated." Rage and adrenaline surged through me as I reached for my phone, intending to call 911. But just before my thumb could tap the dial icon, my phone buzzed. Not a text, not a call, an encrypted alert, masked under a calculator app. The screen flashed, Emergency Protocol 7A, reinforcements incoming. Civilian safety priority. Maintain position. I froze, swallowing hard. It had been years since I activated that code, a safeguard from another life, one most people would never suspect. Karen leaned against the porch railing, arms smugly crossed, oblivious to what she'd just set in motion. "Go ahead," she said with a sneer, "call your little lawyer. While law trumps local sympathy." I looked up at her, not with fear, but with a calm that came from knowing what was coming next. I gently helped Alina to her feet as she winced in pain, and as the wind chime clinked softly in her hand, now smeared with blood, I stared at Karen and said evenly, "You just crossed a line you won't walk back from." She laughed, a cruel and dismissive bark. But even as she turned to walk away, I already heard it, a low, distant rumble. Engines. Big ones. Reinforcements were on their way. And Karen Wilburn had no idea the kind of storm she had just summoned. The rumble started faint, like a distant thunderstorm, but it grew louder, heavier, until it was unmistakable, the mechanical growl of powerful engines rolling through a neighborhood that had never seen anything more threatening than a poorly parked Prius. Karen, halfway down our walkway with her clipboard tucked under one arm, paused mid-step. Around us, windows opened, blinds shifted, and neighbors emerged onto lawns and porches, squinting toward the source of the noise. Then, from around the corner of Chestnut Drive, they came, 5 matte black military convoys, heavy-duty and humming with authority. The lead vehicle bore no plates, just a gold insignia that only a handful of people in the country would recognize, but I knew it well. As the vehicles pulled to a halt in front of our house, uniformed operatives in tactical gear poured out, moving with precision and discipline. Karen froze as one of them approached, a woman with short cropped hair and a stern face that radiated command. "Karen Wilburn?" she asked, holding up a sleek, metallic ID badge. Karen sputtered, What is this? This is private property." The woman didn't blink. "You are to remain where you are. This is now a restricted zone under Emergency Protocol 7A. Karen blinked in disbelief. "You can't just, I'm the HOA president." The operative leaned closer, lowering her voice just enough to chill the air between them. "And you just assaulted the wife of a Tier 5 clearance operative. You're lucky we're not detaining you on the spot." Karen's smug confidence drained from her face. For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. Around her, the neighborhood fell into stunned silence. Cedar Pine Estates would never be the same, and Karen was just starting to realize she'd picked the wrong porch to mess with. The aftermath of the military arrival was swift and decisive. Medics from the convoy tended to Alina right on our front lawn, carefully cleaning and bandaging her scraped elbow while keeping her calm and reassured. Despite the shock and pain, Alina's strength shone through, and I could see a flicker of relief cross her face knowing that help had arrived so quickly. Meanwhile, Karen Wilburn was approached by the tactical commander, who informed her firmly that assault charges were being filed immediately under the Civilians Against Bureaucratic Abuse Act, a little-known but powerful federal statute designed to rein in petty tyrants like her. Karen, still struggling to comprehend the gravity of her situation, protested loudly about overreach and neighborhood sovereignty, but her words fell on deaf ears. The officers escorted her to one of the convoy vehicles, placing her under temporary detainment for further investigation. As the neighborhood watched, whispers of disbelief and amazement spread like wildfire. The same woman who had ruled Cedar Pine Estates with an iron fist was now a federal case. Back at the house, the DSA commander approached me with a solemn nod. "You did well not to escalate before calling us," she said quietly. "Most people don't realize that not every suburban dispute is just about lawn care. Your wife's safety triggered protocols tied to your clearance." I nodded, realizing that my past life had collided with this quiet suburb in ways I never expected. Later, the HOA board was forced to repeal several draconian rules, including the ban on decorative items like wind chimes, a small victory that felt symbolic of reclaiming our home. Karen's house went on the market within days, and a new era of calm settled over Cedar Pine Estates. Sometimes, I thought, it takes more than a lawsuit or a letter from a lawyer to make things right. Sometimes it takes 5 military convoys and a woman who refuses to back down.